Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth. Our meeting date is Monday, March 10th, 2025. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the clerk to note our starting time for the minutes is 7 p.m. A warm welcome and greetings is extended to councillors, staff, delegations, and we have a special group of observers in the council chamber tonight. Young folk from our community who are involved in a maybe Councillor Rothwell can explain it better than me.
Thanks, Mayor Todd, and members of council, staff, and public. So the Christian Reformed Church has a group called the Cadets, and I think we've got 8, I didn't count right, 5. They're a group of about 10 individuals that are part of the group, and their 2 leaders are here tonight as well, and I had the honor of being invited to speak to them about the importance of municipal government and everything that municipal government does. So this is part of their course that they took, and they asked all kinds of questions, and I provided the best answers I could. So we have some young citizens here that are looking forward to seeing us in action, and so it's our pleasure to have them here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. I knew that he had a better explanation than I did, but we're certainly glad to have the crew with us tonight. We also welcome those who are participating remotely, if they are watching on video, or others in the council chamber tonight. Let's begin tonight's meeting with the playing of O Canada. Those in chambers as able are invited to stand. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after this meeting as an archived video. To those who are viewing this meeting via the YouTube channel, a warm welcome to you. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of the Council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded, and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and/or unacceptable behavior and/or comments. Thank you. At this time, I invite your decorum over the course of the coming meeting. I have regrets tonight from Councillor Matt Duncan. Let's move to item 5 on our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. Members of council have full lives with engagement in the community. Sometimes they may find themselves with a potential financial or pecuniary interest in an item at the council table. Provincial legislation mandates councillors to declare this interest and in so doing avoid direct involvement in the consideration or voting on the item. I invite all councillors with a perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have already so declared in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session. Documentation is to be submitted, if not already done, pursuant to council procedures. Councillors may declare now or at any point during the meeting should such interest be recognized. Ahead of this meeting, we've had 2 communications by email. First, I'll call on Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll declare a pecuniary interest on item 9.2.2, the Burnett Municipal Drain, as I'm an officer of a corporation that owns land on that drain, and also subsequently 17.1, the confirmatory bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. Next up is Councillor Alan Rothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I'd like to declare a pecuniary interest as well on item 9.2.2. The Burnett Municipal Drain is my wife and I own a farm that is assessed on that drain, as well as the confirmatory bylaw item 17.1.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Anyone else wishing to make a declaration at this time? Seeing none, as chair of this meeting, I will manage the flow of proceedings tonight and largely in accord with our agenda and the rules of procedure. Some may be participating remotely by web conference. Should they wish to speak, they may draw the attention of the clerk to this using the conference technology's text chat function. If technical difficulties arise for remote participants, we have IT staff available to us, and we will do what we can to link them up. Let us now focus on the people's business. Part of that focus is achieved when those in the chamber silence and put away their telephones. Regarding item 6 of our agenda, I have a resolution for our consideration to approve the agenda as follows. That the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Can I call for mover? Councillor Anstett, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Blazek. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. Councillor Blazek records a manual in favor vote. And with that, that is carried. Thank you. Let's move to our next item, item 7 on the agenda, the so-called consent agenda. Consent items are placed on our agenda because they're believed to be non-contentious, yet they may warrant council's recognition and/or action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillors wishing to extract one or more items from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, and individual action may do so. There are 28 items on our consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Councillors, anything to extract here or any corrections to the minutes that you'd like noted? I'm not seeing any hands wave at me, so let's consider the resolution that consent items 7.1 to 7.28 be received for information and the minutes of the February 24th, 2025 regular council meeting be adopted. Can I call for a mover? Deputy Mayor Kellum, and seconded by Councillor Rothwell. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. Thank you. Emmanuel, vote in favor from Councillor Anstett. And that is carried. Thank you. This time it's proposed that we move to agenda item number 8. Tonight we don't have delegations or public meetings that would warrant a recess from council, which allows us to move on to item 9 on our agenda, reports from departments and staff. First, let us consider one item from the Facilities Department under item 9.1 of our agenda. As item 9.1.1, council is presented with results from a properly undertaken procurement process which sought proposals to address repairs for the Listowel Kinsman outdoor pool. And I'm going to call on North Perth Manager of Facilities, Jeff Newell, to address this matter. Mr. Newell, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Todd and members of council. Yes, we are looking at doing repairs to the Listowel-Kinsman pool. It is nearing its end of life, and a renovation repair is required to extend the life of the pool until a new pool can be constructed in the next 5 to 6 years. A new furnace is also required as part of the project that we're undertaking. A team of 3 people reviewed a number of submissions. There was 3 of them in total. They reached the following conclusion that the process and the evaluation that was looked into it was determined that Acapulco Pools submission was the top one. The pricing was very competitive. However, they scored 76.69 out of 100. The approved funding source for this from a financial implication standpoint is part of what council will remember was $2.55 million that we had set aside towards the new pool. So these repairs are a portion of that budget. So we are far under budget when it comes to this because we're only doing the repairs. We still need to maintain funding for the new pool. So the recommendation is that we award the contract to Acapulco Pools in the total of $153,270. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Newell. Any questions or first comments before we consider the resolution? Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, through Mayor Kaysenberg. Just have a question about the timing. Are you satisfied by their timing in terms of having the pool ready to go for swim season coming up in 2025?
Yes, we have a deadline of the pool being filled by June 6th, which then gives us an opportunity to have the pool inspected and ready to go.
Anyone else with questions? Councillor Blazek.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. Thanks, Jeff. What does this look like for prolonging the life of this pool and the projection for when we're going to be able to work on a new pool?
Right, so there's a couple of things at play here, Councillor Blazek. The repairs should get us 5 to 6 years of life in the pool, which is the repairing of the cracks primarily in the pool, and the new heater, which would extend well beyond 5 years, so could be repurposed in the new pool as well. We have planned to have the new pool constructed anywhere to about a 5 to 6 year window. That would come closer if we were to receive some grant funding that we applied for, and I mentioned to council at another time we had applied for $4 million of funding through the Canadian Sport Recreation Infrastructure Fund.
Okay, anyone else with questions or first comments before we consider the resolution? Councillor Johnston.
If we don't do these repairs, would the pool be open this year?
We would open, but I would be very uncertain whether we would get a year out of it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with questions or first comments? All right, I have a resolution prepared by staff for consideration as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth awards request for proposal NP-5401-25P Listowel-Kinsman Outdoor Pool Repairs contract to Acapulco Pools Limited of Kitchener, Ontario, including contingency up to an amount of $153,270 excluding taxes. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Blazek, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Andreessen. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you, Mr. Newell. Let's turn next to items brought to us by the Operations Department. Is item 9.2.1. Council is invited to grant staff approval to investigate and make recommendations in future about a Share the Road educational campaign linked to our permissions for ATVs to use the vast majority of the roads in the municipality of North Perth, and continuing change in the mix of transportation modes, including cycling, ATVs, and micromobility e-assisted devices. Manager of Operations Matt Ropp is with us to provide an overview and recommendations. Welcome, Mr. Robb.
Good evening, Mayor Kaysenberg and members of council. Staff were directed to prepare a report at the August 12th, 2024 council meeting regarding possible signage on roads for ATV use to deal with improved safety for the traveling public. An example of that sign is shown on the screens. That image was shared by the North Perth ATV Club. Subsequently, staff met with the North Perth ATV Club on December 31st, 2024, where they highlighted 3 road segments, being Line 87, Road 165, and Germain Ave South. These locations of requested signage are highlighted here, just for more clarity. These road segments highlight the most popular ATV routes according to the ATV Club and are predominantly on rural roads adjacent to urban corridors. Due to the limited roadway width, ATVs must share the road with other road users. Currently, OPP have no concerns with ATV and vehicle conflicts. While the Transportation Master Plan does not directly identify share the road initiatives, it can be recognized that there is a shift in transportation modes. With cycling, micromobility, e-scooters, and ATVs gaining popularity, the diversity of road users is expected to increase over time. Traditional road users being vehicles, agricultural equipment, horse-drawn buggies, and pedestrians are also part of the conversation. Using the traffic management review process from the Transportation Master Plan, staff were able to complete an initial technical investigation. Findings indicate that the proposed locations do not merit any physical traffic control devices to alter the speed or address the conflicts between road users. However, educational measures could be deemed appropriate, but should consider all road users. Share the road educational measures can draw attention to the importance of safe driving practices, particularly when sharing the road with other types of road users. Examples of educational measures can include online resource materials, public engagement, and strategic placements of signage throughout the municipality. Staff recommending that council receives this report for information and further directs staff to investigate and report back to council on a Share the Road educational campaign that would involve all road users. Development of a proposed educational campaign will give internal staff members, would include internal staff members from the operations, strategic initiative, and the agricultural specialists. There are no financial impacts to this information report, with any costs associated to a Share the Road campaign presented to council in a future report. And included in the report package, but just to share a couple of screenshots, this is an image from the Rural Road Safety Alliance, which is based out of the region of Waterloo, that shares online resource materials and quite a few educational videos, especially for those in the ATV community. And then the next slide shows some examples from the Grey County Share the Road initiative that they also partnered with their ag community to build a campaign and provide resources online for residents to use. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ropp. Councillor Anstead first, then Councillor Andreessen.
Thanks, Mayor Kaysenberg. Through you. Thanks, Matt, for the report. I know you mentioned it, that at this time there's no financial implications. I'm just wondering if in your discussions with the ATV Club, I know previously when they came to council last year, they had mentioned that they would possibly be open to assisting with some of those costs. I'm just wondering if that came up in your discussions with them.
No, not in our discussions with the club, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. Matt, my question is just about just actually a comment as well around what we're seeing on the screen right now. We're seeing information about farm equipment, cycling, Amish, Mennonite buggies, and of course our ATVs. My preference would be to make sure that our campaign really covers all of those elements rather than just ATV usage. And I know you kind of were swaying that way, but I just want to say that that would definitely be my preference because we do have to share the road with all those elements. So making sure the focus is broad instead of too narrow. Thanks.
Yep, fair comment. It is hard to emphasize that in a report, and I was trying to do a little bit in my presentation. It would focus on all road users. So yes, I didn't have a image that kind of showed what an example would look like with all the different logos for different types of road users, but that's something that we would investigate with our internal groups of how we could display that image properly that would encounter or encompass all the different users that we see on our roadways.
Thank you. Councillor Rothwell?
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and through you, thanks very much for the report. I think it's certainly laid the foundation for the work, and I want to thank the ATV Club as well in your discussions, and I fully agree what was said earlier by Councillor Andreessen in terms of the broad range, and I think where it started was, of course, our discussions about the request of the ATV Club to use part of the North Perth Trail, but clearly this is much broader than that, and I underscore what you've said in the report, and Councillor Andreessen and others have said, that it's a broad issue, and we know fully on the agricultural sector side, certainly Elizabeth Banner had an article specifically about road safety and agricultural equipment and issues that they've had and ongoing issues that they have because of the size and scales of the operations and people's impatience in dealing with large vehicles that may impede them. So I applaud the work that you've done so far and look forward to the additional work. And frankly, I will say it's great that there are some resources from municipalities that have gone before us. And as long as they agree that we can utilize some of their best work and make sure that it's our own for our community, it's important to do that. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. I'll throw in, just from the casual observation of living in Atwood, that golf carts might also want to be in your symbology. It certainly does show up in my community. Anyone else with questions or comments? All right, let's consider the resolution that's been put before us then as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the ATV Share the Road signage report for information and directs staff to investigate and report back to Council on a Share the Road educational campaign that would involve all road users. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Rothwell. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you, Mr. Rupp. Carry on. It looks like we have some councillors exiting the chamber. The minutes should reflect that per their declarations of pecuniary interest earlier. All right, let's turn to item 9.2.2. This one invites council to proceed with the request for minor improvements to the Burnett Municipal Drain under section 78, subsection 5 of the Drainage Act, and to appoint an engineer. I'll invite Scott Richardson, our drainage superintendent, to address this item. Welcome, Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Excuse me. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider, like you say, the 78.5 minor improvement for the Burnett Municipal Drain that crosses lot 27 in the west part of 28, concession 5. The previous report for this portion of the Burnett Drain was prepared by HB Senton, use a P-Eng with RJ Burnside under bylaw 79-7. The request for the 78.5 of the Drainage Act was received on January 23rd of this year. The request is for realigning approximately 1,100 meters to run the lot lines, eliminate the need for a culvert, and to square up the fields. The owner will be responsible for all the costs associated with the improvement. Therefore, the section 78.5, it applies. There'll be no expense to the municipality for this project.
All right, thank you, Mr. Richardson. Questions or first comments on this matter? Not seeing any, so let's consider the resolution then as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth proceeds in accordance with section 78, subsection 5 in the Drainage Act for minor improvements of the Burnett Municipal Drain, and that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth appoints Spreet Associates to investigate, design, and prepare a report for the Burnett Municipal Drain. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Nordum, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Andreessen. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. If we would do the honors of bringing back our colleagues. All right, next let us consider 4 items from the Corporate Services Department under item 9.3 of our agenda. Hang on, Clerk Klein, we may not need this. This is more us, I think, right? As item 9.3.1, council is invited to appoint a member from amongst our current members of the North Perth Court of Revision to a joint court of revision with the municipality of Huron East that will be constituted for the purposes of considering revisions to the Smith municipal drain. We must select a member from amidst the current ranks. Mr. Richardson and Clerk Klein are both here to answer potential questions, but council, this is largely our work, so we need to figure out who our designate is. Now, we have a table in front of me, and we can set up chairs and do an arm wrestle if anyone really prefers that strategy. But let's see whether we have someone who's willing to step forward into this. So I see Councillor Nordum. What I see is Councillor Johnston backing away from the table, so I have a straight line of view at Councillor Nordum. Councillor Nordum, are you willing to serve in this capacity?
Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing the honor? We don't have to do the arm wrestle then, I guess, tonight. Okay, sounds good. Then let's go right to the resolution that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth appoints Mark Nordum. Let me write it in. As the Municipality of North Perth representative on the Court of Revision for the Smith Municipal Drain. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Johnston's happy to step back to the table and move that. I see Councillor Richardson will be our seconder. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Let's have that vote before anyone changes minds here. And that is carried. And I really genuinely do look forward to an arm wrestle at some point before my term as mayor is over. All right, thank you. Let's move on to item 9.3.2. Council is presented with input from the proponents of the so-called Trident subdivision at the northwest of Listowel for the naming of streets in their draft approved subdivision plan. This advice is deemed by staff to be consistent with the naming protocols established by the municipality, and it is recommended for approval. Again, Clerk Klein is available to us. I'm not sure that we need a deep presentation here, but certainly she's available for questions. The report is pretty fulsome. We have a good sense of what is recommended, I think. Anyone have questions for Ms. Klein? I'm not seeing any. Made your life easier, Clerk Klein. That's my goal. All right. So we have a resolution here as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the request from Caroline Baker on behalf of Trident Group Limited to establish the following street names for draft plan of subdivision NP 24-01. Street A, Emery Avenue South. Street B, Cavell Drive. Street D, I, and J, Partridge Crescent. Street F, Mayberry Avenue South, and Street G and H, Willoughby Drive. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Deputy Mayor Callum, seconded by Councillor Anstett. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on these names? Councillor Rothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. And through you, perhaps Councillor Klein could answer. Do we actually know which of these names were chosen from the list of our veterans that we had they were to pick from? Thank you.
Through the mayor, I believe they all are on our historic list of inventory names.
Thank you very much. And just further one question. Do we demarc on our actual signs that has a poppy or something on it? Do we do that? Or is it only some municipalities are doing that that denotes it's for a named in honor of a veteran?
Through the mayor, I don't believe we currently do that here in North Perth.
Thanks. I'll bring something forward later. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with questions or comments on this matter before we proceed? So this is duly moved and seconded. I think we're ready for the vote. Let's have it. And that is carried. Thank you. See, I made your life easier tonight, Clerk Klein. All right, no such luck for Treasurer Ashton Romani, though. In item 9.3.3, Mr. Romani brings forward an annual investment report update. For our receipt as information, recall that municipal governments have tightly controlled provisions for investment in instruments where same is reasonable and sensible. So, Mr. Romani, I think a few words from you on this one would be appropriate, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, and good evening, members of council. So in 2021, the municipality invested funds in accordance with the investment policy in the amount of $19.5 million. These funds primarily represent reserve funds that are intended to be used towards future capital initiatives. So in accordance with various acts, regulations, the municipality's investment policy, an annual update is required to be presented to council. So to supplement tonight's update, Michael Aris, the municipality's investment advisor, did provide commentary on the market outlook. Keep note that this was prepared a few weeks ago and the market has significantly changed since. So at the time of production of the report, we do have year-to-date results. You'll see that a number of our investments did exceed the maximum payout. The investment advisor has suggested that we'll need to review these further and potentially look at reinvesting them. However, staff intend to propose postponing, recommend or changing those investments to allow us to gain a stronger understanding of our future cash flows, pending the fiscal audit for the year 2024 and also the ongoing tariff situation. So as of today, there's $50.5 million in investments outstanding, with $4 million coming due in April. And the latter approach, I believe, in 2026 and 2028, we do have additional investments coming due. But if there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Romani. Let's hear it from council. Any questions or first comments on this matter? Awfully quiet. Let's consider the resolution then as follows. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the annual investment performance update report for information. Can I call on a mover? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Andreessen. Any discussion or debate on this matter? I don't see any, so let's have the vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Romani. All right. Next item, tariffs imposed by executive order of the President of the United States of America are much on the minds of most in this country and even around the world. In item 9.3.4, Council gets advice from staff consolidated by our procurement officer in a written report about the current landscape and possible approaches to managing in the face of what almost all would call a deliberate threat to Canada's economic stability and sovereignty. Our work as a corporation is to strategize in the face of new realities and theoretical possibilities to relieve financial stress, sustain local economic growth, and make sure our practices align with what is permitted under rapidly changing circumstances. Samantha French, who is our procurement officer, is with us. Other staff are also available to us should we need them, but let's begin with Ms. French, please.
Thank you for having me, Mayor Kassenberg, and members of council. I'm here to present the report Strategic Approach to U.S. Tariffs in Procurement in response to council's request to address regarding the U.S. tariffs. I'd like to preference by saying this report was written last Wednesday, March 4th, and the very following day, changes obviously were implemented for a temporary 30-day pause on the trade U.S., Mexico, Canada trade items. So everything is very in flux, and so just keep that in mind as we go through this. Under the Municipal Act, municipalities must uphold procurement policies that abide by governing trade agreements, as outlined in the report, as well as the attachment indicating the thresholds. These ensure fair and transparent processes while maintaining fiscal responsibility for taxpayer dollars. The exact impact of these tariffs is currently unknown. However, they do pose a potential risk to municipal projects with increased cost, potential lower service levels, and potential delays in supply chain management. To navigate these challenges, staff plan to monitor the situation carefully and have outlined key strategic responses to mitigate the risk and align procurement strategies within the legal framework, such as monitoring, reviewing the risk assessment, potential diversion in a supply chain, just different aspects. I'd also like to note here that the municipality of North Perth has limited tenders with U.S. suppliers, with only 96% being Canadian-based since my start in 2023. So, however, this focus is on supplier location and does not account for the origins of goods being procured. With the uncertainties and changing situation daily surrounding tariffs, as well as the inconsistent practices observed amongst other municipalities surrounding policy changes, staff did not initially propose any changes at this time. However, if it is council's desire to buy Canadian, staff did prepare a recommendation for consideration for the interim. This seeks to prioritize the acquisitions of goods and services from Canadian businesses in accordance with existing trade agreements and thresholds within the procurement bylaw. This would primarily affect procurements that fall within the informal quotation grouping. This will formalize practices already set in place by some departments when acquiring goods and services within these thresholds corporate ride. Further to this, staff have also did propose a supplemental recommendation to continue to monitor the situation, including best practices and regulatory changes, and report back to council accordingly.
All right, thank you, Ms. French. Questions, comments from council? Councillor Rothwell first.
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and through you, thanks very much, Samantha and staff, for this very timely report. I underscore your comments. It's an hourly changing situation. I do note the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, mentioned provincially, as I understand, the approach is Ontario and Canada first. And I'm not sure if there's going to be legislation from the province when they come back into sitting that might give municipalities the same sort of direction. So perhaps, as opposed to this council considering as to whether or not we would have the Buy Ontario, Buy Canadian sort of direction, perhaps we could hear from our MPP and the legislature as they move forward. And I certainly agree with the monitor approach because it's at the top of mind for everything that we're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Anyone else wishing to make comment? Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. I want to thank you for your report too. My question is a little bit different than what Councillor Rothwell was talking about. And it may be more directed to Treasurer Romney. I guess my concern is that given the changing climate with tariffs and one doesn't quite know what we're going to be up against month to month, week to week. I guess my question is that with ongoing projects, we already have estimates and we already have quotes that we're working from. What happens if in an existing project, if new tariffs are imposed and the cost really becomes out of control, way above what our budgets are, had been prepared for, and how we'll kind of manage that as the tides continue to change. Thank you.
No, thank you. I'll take a crack at initially.
Okay.
Is that the plan right now is not to change the current budget 10-year forecast and to work within those. So in other words, mitigate risk by looking for those contracts and seeing where those potential extra costs may come in and mitigating them before they happen. In other words, alternatives to Canadian suppliers. But with that said, we can't eliminate completely U.S. suppliers from our procurement process when it comes to things like wastewater treatment plants, as well as our IT systems. we can't eliminate everything. So it's more about understanding where the additional expenses may be coming in. And again, that's about analyzing our current contracts as well as future ones. So again, there was no change to budgets. That's what we've kind of decided at this point because it would just fluctuate so much. And then just try to mitigate that risk going forward by looking at the current contracts and seeing alternatives. Unless Ashton has anything else to say, to add to it.
And just to further add from a budget perspective, if there's any projected significant budget overages, it's similar to some projects. If there's an unanticipated cost where a change order is required or something like that, we'll address it at that point in time. But if there's anything, we're starting a new project and we realize it's going to cost significantly more, we'll need to evaluate against our entire capital program and determine, is this a priority for the municipality? And since it would fall over, budget thresholds in accordance with the procurement bylaw, potentially that would have to come back to council for further approval. So essentially, the budget that's in place right now, it's going to be maintained as it stands.
Okay, thank you. I'm actually glad you addressed that question because certainly that was the one that was on my mind is with regards to monitoring, are we going to pour over every contract that we have at this point of substance and identify risk so that we know what could lie ahead and and start to think about the mitigation or adjustment strategies. So it sounds like your answer was yes, and I was excited about that. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else with questions or comments before we consider the resolution? Councillor Johnston.
Just a quick comment that I think this is where it's going to show how great our staff is they're going to monitor it and help us through some changing daily times that you don't know what's coming today or tomorrow. So thank you and great job so far.
Thank you.
I think it's going to take some of our risk management to some new dimensions as well, and that may be of some value in the organization at this point in time. All right, ready for the resolution then, colleagues? All right, let's have it that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the strategic approach to U.S. tariffs and procurement report for information. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Rothwell, thank you. And Councillor Richardson will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Next up are 3 items from the Strategic Initiatives Department is item 9.4 of our agenda. As item 9.4.1, Council is invited to endorse a resolution calling on the senior levels of government from coast to coast to work effectively and quickly on ending interprovincial trade barriers. Tonight, CAO Snell is going to speak to this matter. This was a recommendation that was received last week from the North Perth Economic Development Advisory Committee. CAO Snell, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First of all, I'd like to begin by just reiterating, as per the email Council received last week, I'd just like to announce that Lindsay Klein has accepted the interim manager strategic initiatives position, and so this will be the only time you have to put up with me giving strategic initiative reports. And certainly look forward to Lindsay taking on the portfolio. As mentioned by the Mayor, North Perth Economic Development did pass a resolution directing staff to look for council support seeking reduction of interprovincial trade barriers by the provincial and federal governments. Just due to the time frame between North Perth Economic Development and the council package going out, there was not much time to put together a report. So staff have begun some investigation into the position that the municipality can take, including finding a resolution presented by our own MP back in 2017 asking for this to be done. So we certainly, I think, have the support of MP Nader on this position. But tonight, we're just asking that council give further direction to staff to prepare a letter to both the Prime Minister, the Premier, and our local MP and MPP to address the issue of removing interprovincial trade barriers, which we will think be a benefit to our local economy during this tariff criteria. I'd also like to add that live tomorrow, there will be a tariff resource page on our own website under the business resource section for our local businesses to provide any information we have on the ongoing tariff situation, just pointing them in the right direction to get advice and information going forward. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you, CAO Snell. Colleagues, questions or first comments? Councillor Andreessen?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. Thank you to CEO Snell for your efforts to begin this approach. I know as part of the North Perth Economic Development Advisory Team, we are very interested in supporting our community to ensure that, of course, we continue to be successful amongst these trade issues and tariffs. One of my comments I'd like to raise, though, as we think about breaking down interprovincial trade, and maybe some of my other agricultural colleagues can speak to this too, is just some cautions around agriculture and trade from province to province. And I'm thinking, and maybe some of my colleagues can speak to this a little bit more as well, I'm thinking more about dairy production, dairy, because we do have a milk marketing board here, and it's in Ontario, and each province has their own, but we do have a Canadian overarching milk marketing board as well. And so I want to make sure that of course, encouraging more interprovincial trade, that's what I think we should be doing, but it's also with a caution around agriculture. And maybe some of my colleagues can speak to this too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Anyone wishing to pick up that gauntlet? Councillor Johnston.
Yeah, with that, each province has their own quota, but there is a lot of milk that does flow where it's needed. So at times, if Ontario has extra production, it does flow into Quebec. Not much goes west due to the logistics of trying to ship milk long distances, but there is shipment between the P5, so the Ontario and everybody east. There is very little shipment west, but I believe there's a lot of dairy products that are made in Ontario that are for Canada. For example, Gailey in Guelph makes all the whipped cream and some of those aerosol cans.
Butter.
That's the only spot in Canada that it is made. So those are made for Canada-wide. They just put a different label on them. So there is some of that already does take place, but I'm not sure dairy would be included in interprovincial barriers simply because milk is hard to move.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to comment on this one? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. I had some conversation with the mayor and the warden. My understanding is that there's a recently announced county, Stratford and St. Mary's tariff committee that's looking at this, and I would hope CEO Snell, any resources that could come out of that committee could be as well shared with our local businesses via our website. My understanding is perhaps the warden or the mayor could answer some additional questions. I just read the news release last week, I think, but as to whether or not, for example, if there's an agriculture representative on that group and so on to answer any questions that and not just agriculture, but whatever the sector is within North Perth that we might be able to provide information. I think that's important as well. So I appreciate the work that the committee has done and staff have done on this, and perhaps we can rely on some additional resources as well that may come out of this committee. Thank you.
Thanks. I don't have anything to add. I think that this was largely driven by a Stratford effort, and that we're sort of partners, as often is the case with Stratford-driven initiative. As far as I know, elected officials are not involved in that task force, and the deputy warden has the same awareness, it would appear. the warden, the deputy mayor has the same awareness. So I don't have anything to add. I've certainly not been invited. Have you been invited to participate?
Through you, Mayor Kaesberg, no, I have not. It's just no elected officials. There was, I think, the mayor of St. Mary's had sat in on, but it's between West Stratford and the county. But if you wish to bring that forward, I can. If you are asking for an agricultural support, I have no problem doing that.
Through you, Mayor Todd, if that would, I think that would be helpful. And certainly an agriculture representative, I'm sure, could add perspective that perhaps may not be there. Thank you.
And I think we're in the unique position. I mean, we have a staff member who is dedicated as an agriculture specialist, so it may be that we'll have the opportunity to see that person join this seemingly staff-oriented task force that is tripartite between the city, the town, and Perth County. Okay, anyone else with comments here? I think we've heard that some caution might be played with regards to agriculture, although I think Councillor Johnston helped us understand the logistics being one of the issues. It's not inherently that there's a barrier there, it's just logistics that become difficult, is what I understood from your comments. So the proposition before us then remains the generation of a letter that would be sent to a range of stakeholders. I think we should add Perth County on here, and perhaps our other lower tier colleagues, at least in the Perth County system, so that they're aware that this resolution has come forward, and if we're going to approve this. Colleagues, ready to consider the resolution then? All right, as follows: staff be directed to send a letter on behalf of the council of the municipality of North Perth, calling upon the federal and provincial governments to eliminate interprovincial trade barriers, and that the letter be sent to the Prime Minister, Premier of Ontario, local MP and MPP, Association of Municipalities of Ontario, Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, Perth County, and other lower tier municipalities in Perth County. Maybe we should send to Stratford and St. Mary's for the sake of completing against the task force that seemingly emerged. So let's add those two. I feel a bit like Oprah all of a sudden. A car for you, a car for you, a car for you. Everybody gets a letter. Everybody gets a letter. All right. Can I call for a mover? Let's have a mover. Councillor Rothwell, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Blazek, thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. CAO Snell is sticking around for item 9.4.2. Staff have responded to a request for a report by this council on the subject of physician recruitment and housing. It is to be recalled that this council earlier received a request for housing support, financial, for medical learners who are known as residents in association with a relatively new program that has been instituted in Listowel in conjunction with Western University's medical school. It appears that the report has been spearheaded by Treasurer Romani, who might want to speak on this, but I see CAO Snell standing there protecting the podium, so off you go, CAO Snell.
So certainly that was good. My first comment was thanks to Treasurer Romani for his assistance in putting this report together, specifically certainly around how we could budget this request going forward. I did speak with staff engaged with recruitment with the Listowel Memorial Hospital to clarify the request, excuse me, and confirm that the funding would only be used to cover the costs in the event of a vacancy in the residency program. So the residencies are here, they would pay for rent that would hopefully cover the cost of their housing. But the hospital and recruitment committee want to obtain a permanent housing facility so there would always be a spot open for new residences when they come. So in that gap, or hopefully there are none, but if there were to be a gap in the rental, then that's when our money would be used to secure that space going forward. So it wouldn't necessarily be a $50,000 commitment annually, but it would range depending on the amount of gaps in that rental setup with the residency program. Dr. Derek Gateman did provide further correspondence supporting the need for the program. And as outlined in the report, Ashwin has given us several options in going forward how we could budget for this, both in 2025 and through 2026. Certainly answer any questions the council may have, and certainly Ashwin is here to answer any of the budget questions.
All right, thank you, CEO Snell. Colleagues, questions, first comments? Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kaysenberg, and thank you for all the work around this proposal. It's, it really is part of our strategic plan to support healthcare in our region and in North Perth. And I certainly, would want to see these vacancies filled. One of my questions and wonderings around this particular proposal is just the fact that it's ongoing. It's requiring us to, fulfill that gap on an annual basis without, really an end game to that, which really ties us down. And especially given all the other amounts of funding that we provided already in the past and in our budget. So I'm a bit hesitant around the ongoing funding. I realize that it's only if there's a gap. I realize that, but we don't know. We don't know from year to year what that could look like. So it's just a hesitancy around this.
So one of the recommendations that Ashton has brought forward is we do this to a limited 5-year commitment. Certainly council could reduce that if they want to. Certainly it have to be approved every year in our budget process, but certainly I think it would be fair to provide both the recruitment team and Louis Memorial Hospital a term, if possible, that would be willing to support the program. So staff is suggesting 5, but we could certainly reduce that to annually or 3 years, or whatever council desires.
Okay, anyone else with questions or comments? Councillor Rothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and thanks, CEO Snell, for the report. My understanding, staff have talked to the council before about the issue of housing, and it's not necessarily just a cost issue, it's also an availability issue. And my concern that I'm hearing in the report here and as the discussions is that if these vacancies happen and so on, we may not necessarily have availability of a housing unit to be able to have a resident live in. If we don't own the property or whatever, we're basically at the whim of the market. Is that correct, or am I overstating?
So I think that's really what they're trying to address here. So what they would like to do, is my understanding, is they would and have a favorable landlord that would provide them a unit that has a space to accommodate all 4 residencies, and that they would lock that up for a term, and that we would then the landlord would certainly require the amount to be paid, whether there's 1 or 4 residences in there, but yeah, we would make up that difference for the term of the rental agreement. And maybe Deputy Mayor Callum can help me, but that's my understanding.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor, and that's exactly it. So we want to, confirm that we have that place. Availability is there, and with regards to Councillor Andreessen, it's the 5 years, it is fine. So I doubt that we will use the 50,000, but it's just there to secure that property. We have spaces available, and we just want to make sure that we have that gap if we require it. So I'm fully supportive, 100%.
Okay, Councillor Andreessen, another shot here.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kaseberg, is there any, and perhaps, Deputy Mayor Kellam can speak to this, is there any thoughts about actually purchasing property for this purpose? As it would be a good investment, just a thought.
Through you, Mayor, that has been brought to our attention as well. That would have to be a council decision. But right now, we're just reaching out to landlords that have places that we can rent from them. But if it's council's wish to purchase property, I'd be open to that comment. Thank you.
I would take note and remind council that we do have investments in the real estate market. It's called Perth Meadows. And while right now it has a history of being a place where mature adults live, I highly doubt that there would be a concern on the part of those who live in Perth Meadows to have a few doctor trainees living in amongst them. In fact, I suspect that they'd be quite delighted and bothering them all the time in the hallways. That's not necessarily a benefit. I know I'm not selling here, but nevertheless, I think that there's a range of ways that we could address this problem beyond money. When I do the math, and my math is not strong, but $50,000, if we hit that ceiling, that means essentially that 2 of the 4 residency slots are not filled permanently all year. And that would be a very disappointing outcome, I think, for this community to see taxpayer dollars spending on holding an empty apartment, essentially, or an empty place for a period of a year for people who aren't here. So I do have reservations. I continue to have, and I know it may not be swimming in the popularity stream here, but healthcare is a provincial responsibility. The province needs to come to the table and solve these problems. And the more that municipal governments come in and bring rescue to the local community, because we want to be in the fight for doctors, nurse practitioners, you name it, the more we set up the stage for the province to wring its hands and say, goody, we don't have to worry about that one anymore either. And I find myself awfully uncomfortable with letting the province off the hook on this on a continuing basis. I will also note, and I do note this, that there have been community efforts to raise significant funds towards physician recruitment, and I find myself not fully understanding the intention of the Physician Recruitment Committee and those who are involved in the use of those funds. And I'd want to know that before I'd be prepared to cast a vote to allocate a ceiling amount of $50,000 a year over a 5-year term. So I'm not in favor of finalizing anything on this report tonight. I think there are a few more questions that I'd like answers to, including the possibilities around Perth Meadows as a possible solution set for this work. Colleagues, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I agree with you that it's a provincial responsibility, but I believe if we don't do something for our people, we are going to fall further and further behind. And that's why I like the 5-year term, that we're only saying we'll stick our neck out for 5 years. But I also think that this agreeing to do this, and I'll quote Mayor Todd Kasenberg, that we are getting some skin in the game here, that we need to show our people that we're serious about. We talk about some of our strategic initiatives and some of our plans, our affordable housing, and a big one for us is doctor recruitment as well. So this is us, for me, it's us putting skin in the game, and that's why I am in favor of it. I'm not a big fan of up to $50,000 because I think we could definitely use $50,000 worth of grading on back roads pretty quick here right now. But in the meantime, I think physician recruitment is a long-term gain for us, for this community. So that's why I am in favor of it.
Councillor Blazek.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Todd. I feel as though you stole the words right out of my mouth. I just wanted to say that I support you. I was going to say, rather than skin in the game, that we need to put our money where our mouth is. We talk a lot about physician recruitment, and I would like to see us act on it. So I am also in support of this.
Councillor Andreessen. Oh, actually, you know what? Councillor Richardson hasn't had a say. He's had his hand up, so let's have him next.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I'm in support of this, and like everyone has been reiterated, that we do have a bit of skin in the game, and I do totally understand that it is a provincial responsibility, but I think that the task at hand, as far as what the province is concerned, to fix this problem is so ingrained and deep that would be an awful, awful, awful long time to get things to where we would like it to be able to have that level of retention. That if we have any opportunity to do that, yes, not so much on spending the money for that allotment, but I think it's certainly worthwhile that, because like I've said before, that if we can have the opportunity to get the doctors here for the sake of that money, to be able to get that residency program, that's much more important than to say that the province is working on it. Because I certainly think that the emergency department, especially in their hospital, is one service that this municipality provides that should not have an open and close sign on it. So anything that we can do to make that better, to have a residency program here and funded by us partially to at least help augment it and make it a success that it can be, I think it's money well spent. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Andreessen, now you have another crack.
I'm not opposed to supporting this at all. I'm just looking at what other solutions can we consider. And the thought of the fact that we do have some property that we could offer for this program, maybe even a better solution than what, providing the $50,000 gap for 5 years. So I'm wondering if we would consider staff exploring the usage of some units from Perth Meadows for this purpose, and give us a little bit more time to investigate that. Again, I'm totally supportive of this. It's just, can we look at some other solutions too that may be even better? Thanks.
Thank you. Just to the skin in the game comment, I do wish to remind Councillor Johnston that we invest $65,000 of property tax money essentially in physician recruitment activities at the current time. My concern, there's another concern, it's sort of a strange equity concern, and that is that as we put more taxpayer dollars into this, if we were to use from the property tax base, and we don't actually solve the problem of every person who wants a doctor in North Perth getting one, then essentially they're paying for a solution set that they don't benefit from. And I find that actually, from an equity perspective, a bit concerning. That's why I'm worried about the use of property tax dollars in the case of this, and would rather bring an alternative solution set, if we can find one, to the table instead of talking about taxpayer dollars. CAOs now.
So the Perth Meadows solution could be a possibility, but currently Perth Meadows is fully full, and we cannot, under that model, those units do not become available very often because people have to give up ownership of them. So at this time, Perth Meadows would not be an option, but if council wishes, we could try to look for alternate solutions. I just don't know what they would be.
Councillor Blazek.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Todd. And just to add to Chris's point, not only are they entirely full, but there is a long wait list of people looking to get in there. So I think that that's an important consideration as well.
Anyone else? Councillor Rothwell.
Thank you very much, Mayor Todd and fellow councillors. I think this is a very good conversation to have. I think whatever solution that's there, our budget dollars from property taxes are going to have to be utilized. So whether, even if there was room at Perth Meadows, we'd have to underwrite that cost to be revenue neutral. That's the way it has to work. So it's just a matter of, and yes, we do have land that hasn't been developed yet in a long-term solution. That may very well be as well, but there's still a tax dollar implication for that in terms of offsetting the amounts and so on. So whatever the longer-term solution is, if it's vacant land, we're not going to see plan of subdivision or a lot created and a building built for within that 5-year time frame, I suspect. So this, I think, is going to be a short, mid to short to early term process, But there is a longer-term process, and I believe some comments here that ownership would be of benefit, so whether it's municipal or through the hospital, however it's going to be owned, as opposed to being in a rental situation, my view. But I am in favor of the scenario staff have proposed here as to whether it's 3 or 5 years. I'm flexible in that respect. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Nordum, I think.
Thanks, and through you, Mayor Kiesenberg. After Deputy Mayor Kellum explained it, it made a lot more sense to me. For me, I'd like to see more 3-year over a 5-year. I'd just be more comfortable with that. Thank you.
Thanks. At this point, the resolution that we have prepared for us is just to receive this report for information. So unless council wishes to consider another action, and I urge it to be cautious about this because it probably deserves some community airing, then we're just receiving this for information. But at least we've had a good conversation about this at this point in time. Colleagues, anyone wishing to consider going beyond the resolution for receipt for information tonight? Do you want to give staff direction on bringing forward a formal resolution proposal to us at a future council meeting? CAOs now.
So up on the screen there were a couple of council resolutions, alternate resolutions proposed based on the comments in the report. Certainly, there's really two options. One is to receive and do nothing, and then the two are versions of options that were available in the report.
Okay. These were not circulated ahead of this meeting, correct? So
that's correct.
To some degree, there's a parliamentary privilege to have seen these before we came to this meeting for reasonable consideration. Okay, Deputy Mayor Kellum.
Yes, through you, Mayor Kiesenberg. So can we receive the, for information and then put forth another resolution after that?
I mean, in theory, yes, it's certainly the possibility of being in order. I suppose, as chair, I would encourage council to defer the actual action resolution as worded because we haven't seen it before tonight. Okay, how do we want to proceed? Okay, why don't we consider the receipt for information and then we can decide whether we want to proceed with something further. As follows, the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives a physician recruitment and housing request report for information. Can I call on a mover? Okay, Councillor Johnston will move this, seconded by Councillor Blazek. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Does council have additional will at this point? Councillor Nordum.
Thanks, Mayor Kiesenberg. I would like to make a motion for our other motion that was before us tonight, but moving that towards a 3-year over a 5-year, if that's possible.
Okay. So moved by Councillor Nordum. Question?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Todd. This is a question for the Clerk's Department. There is nothing, like procedurally, that prevents us from moving on. Like, I'm sure you would have let us know, but I just want to clarify for the public.
Through the mayor, no, there's nothing that would prevent council from passing an alternate or a second resolution related to this item.
As you've heard, my preference would be to consider this at another meeting because this is the first time we're seeing the text of this resolution, and I think it's a significant one that warrants due public airing. However, I will certainly accede to the will of my colleagues. So Councillor Nordum has moved this, seconded by Councillor Johnston. Thank you. discussion or debate on this one? Councillor Andreessen.
Just as I look at the wording in this resolution, it says that we're approving a request from Listle Memorial Hospital for up to 50,000 per year. It doesn't talk about the gap component. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It doesn't talk about the gap component of the purpose of the funding.
So they could send us an invoice for 50,000.
They could, given
And
this wording, that
given
would
this
be
wording
my
and
concern
not have to account for it.
with the wording at this point.
Yeah. I would agree with that interpretation. And this might be why I'm going to position the argument again. We should look at this again. Colleagues, what do you want to do? Councillor Rothwell.
Mayor Todd, my question just from a timing perspective. If council agrees to defer this matter, the anticipated return of this would be our next council meeting, which I believe is March the 24th, correct? So from a timing perspective, it's 2 weeks. And correct me if I'm wrong, there may be a desire to move forward here sooner, but there's no urgency that this is required like forthwith. So in the sake of caution, I am in support of what has been revised and the wording we had from 5 years to 3. But I'm just wondering for the comfort of everyone and the public that we could defer for 2 weeks and we have the report back if staff have the time to do that, and we could still move forward on that basis as opposed to moving forward as quickly now just because we're receiving this. But I mean, that's my view from a comfort standpoint. 2 weeks doesn't necessarily put anyone off here in terms of the hospital itself and the request, but 2 weeks is a short deferral. So I would speak in favor of that. Thanks.
Thank you. Correct me if I'm wrong, CEO Snell, but the residency program is in sort of a ramp-up phase right now as well, right? So we don't actually need to provide housing for 4 people yet. I think we have one now who's with us. There's another one coming, or expected to come in the next year, as I understand it. And then annually, I think they're adding 1 more a year or 2 more to get to the threshold of 4. So from a perspective of housing, it's not like tomorrow the hospital needs to enter into rental agreements or long-term lease agreements for 4 units, because we won't see those 4 people in this community until at least a year from now, and more likely almost 2 years from now. Am I right?
I think my understanding is there's 2 more coming in July.
Okay.
One now, 2 more coming in July, and then 1 more either late 2025 or early 2026. That's the timing I understand, but
so
I could be corrected.
There is a little bit of runway. I've got my runway a little too long, but it sounds like there's a little bit of runway.
In speaking with the hospital staff, they wanted to have an answer by the end of March. One reason why I tried to bring it tonight is because if it was deferred, we would have 1 more meeting before their deadline.
Fair enough. Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, through you.
Yeah,
and I believe, again, it's to secure the property that they have in mind, so that it is, instead of moving it down, we wait another month. You know, there's not saying that this landlord is going to rent it out to someone else. So I think we want to secure something while it is available.
Okay, so then certainly if we pass this resolution, and especially as worded, we can expect an invoice for 50,000 unless we adjust that wording in the first paragraph of the resolution. And the taxpayers will be on the hook for some component of holding this place for a period of time for at least one resident who's, you said end of year. And if the rental agreement is formulated for April 1st, then a few months for the other two, if I'm following the bouncing ball. Councillor Andreessen?
Could we do a friendly amendment to the wording so that it could represent more of supporting the gap of, I don't have the wording in my head, but do you know what I mean? That the purpose of the funding is to support, if there's any gaps in the rentals with the residency program for housing. So that would be, if we could change that wording or so it could be, it would work for this evening. And hopefully we could pass this if the timing is an issue.
Okay. Staff are kind of looking at us. How could we improve the intention of the expression of the first paragraph so that it's not that we're writing a $50,000 check, which the first paragraph could allow, but in fact is intended to allow the hospital to draw funds from a municipal grant to cover rents or accommodation charges for residence positions that are when in fact there's vacancy in the property.
Vacancies, the word I was, what if we put the word vacancies behind the word housing? Residency program vacancies.
Or vacancies in the residence program housing.
Yes, and what if we use the word vacancies?
Yeah. I think we need to put to cover the costs of vacancies or something like that. I think that's the intention. I don't think, I mean, maybe Deputy Mayor Kellum knows more because of his more intimate involvement with this issue, but I do believe that it's believed that most of these residents, they're going to be paid adequately enough that they should be able to afford their monthly rents. Is that sort of generally the premise?
Not quite, Mayor Kaysenberg.
Okay.
Not quite.
So
this is an addition from us to help them offset.
Okay, so we're going to have to, what we're doing then, what I'm understanding now is we want to support the cost of vacancies if we have a property that's locked in. And we may need to top up monthly accommodation costs. But how is that determined? Who determines that top up? And Councillor Norton.
Could we possibly write to fill the void and vacancies?
I don't know if that helps us much from my interpretation of that wording. I think this is, again, another reason why it wouldn't be a bad idea to let staff bring something back to us that captures our intent here. Staff, what do you think? CAO Snell, what's your opinion on this?
Covers that bridge the gap of vacancy.
Certainly, council can defer. I think it's either going to be a really complex motion because of the variables in what the request is. I think what might be better, and I don't know if we can get this accomplished by the 24th, would be to enter into an agreement with Louisville Memorial Hospital, providing more details on what this actually will look like versus trying to word a motion that's going to satisfy council. That's just my thoughts.
Okay. Clerk Klein, I saw you wave your hand earlier. Did you have comments you'd wish to make?
I just wanted to suggest some wording that I pulled directly from the letter from Listowel Memorial Hospital. So they requested $50 annually from the municipality to support the subsidization of the rent for the residents and or pay the lease cost if the unit is empty at any point. So we could add that specific wording to the first clause if that's the specificity that council is looking for.
Yeah, I think we should try that. Can you do something to muck that into what we're seeing on the screen? I really do not like legislation on the fly here. It's not my favorite thing, but I think you want if any unit is empty, actually. I think that will help the intent. Any, sorry, any.
Through the mayor, sorry, the treasurer just clarified that we're actually not subsidizing rent, so I'll have to take that out.
Oh, so we're not subsidizing, but Deputy Mayor Kellum's under the impression that there is a request to help augment rents for these residents. So is that?
So that certainly wasn't the intent from my conversation with hospital staff, but maybe that is more than, if that's what Deputy Mayor is our representative on the physician recruit, or the healthcare recruitment committee, so maybe Deputy Mayor could answer that.
I believe if there is a shortfall in the rent, so whatever the rent that they're asking for, that if they cannot come up with it, that we, I don't want to use the word subsidize, but we bridge the gap in what it is. What I would also like to see up there is about the number of units. So I am not sure which property they were looking at. So if it is a 6 unit and only 2 are used, correct? Do we pay for the other 4? If it's a 4-plex and there's 1 being used, do we pay for the other 3?
Yeah, yeah, lots of questions. That's what I'm concerned about, is that there's a lot of questions here. So I'm starting to get a sense that maybe we should defer because we do have some questions, and when some of the proponents at the table, so far at least in debate, are saying let's defer, perhaps it's warranted. Councillor Blazek.
Thank you, through Mayor Todd, and I appreciate the idea that we may want to defer. I just had one comment. My comfort is more on the pay the least cost if any unit is empty than on subsidizing rent for residents who are being paid a salary to be here. Right. So I thought that the wording needed to change, but I'm not comfortable with adding subsidizing rent for residents, just that we cover or bridge the gap of lease costs if any unit is empty. My feelings on that.
So council, we would want staff to consider possibilities, sort of, variations on that theme potentially, because we're hearing potentially subsidize the residents gap, and residents are not particularly well paid. I mean, I think that's well established, but perhaps we need to understand what the pay structure is for residents before we consider this, and then look at the issues of leasing. And I think the Deputy Mayor has given us some parameters for staff to think about, which are if in fact it's a 6-plex that they want to engage, but the ceiling is only 4 residents, then the municipality is going to be wasting its money holding the other 2 units. But perhaps that's the pig in the poke, as the saying goes, to achieving this outcome in our community. So some questions I think that I have certainly, and okay, so we have a resolution on the floor that said, like, let's shoot for this. We've changed it already, but let's consider how procedurally we should act. There seems to be a little bit of mouthing at me to defer. So Clerk Klein, how do we procedurally get there?
Through the mayor, I think just since there's been a bit of wordsmithing with the motion, it would be easiest if the motion was withdrawn and then council could move a new motion to defer this item to the next meeting.
having given instruction in the debate and discussion that has happened in council. All right. So we need to turn to the mover and the seconder to ask if they're willing to withdraw the motion. Councillor Nordum?
Yes, Mayor Kasenberg, I'm willing to withdraw my motion.
Thank you. And who was our seconder? Councillor Blazek? Oh, Councillor Johnston.
Yes, I will agree to a withdrawal.
All right, so highly unusual experience that we just had. Clerk Klein, do we need a vote on that, or it's just we've withdrawn it from the floor? All right. So then we need an alternative motion, which I believe is to direct staff to bring forward resolution options, because we've heard a variation, at least on the theme here. At least one councillor, and I would add my voice to that too, are a little bit concerned about subsidizing residents' salary to achieve payment of their rent. I personally wouldn't vote for that unless I knew what residents were making and get a sense of what the rents are and all that kind of stuff. So we need staff to be creative here in bringing back a report with some resolution options that reflect the conversation that we've had at this table on this matter tonight. Does that seem like a reasonable approach, Clerk Klein? We're directing staff to, okay. Anyone have any ways to improve this before we consider getting a mover and seconder for this? I think we do need a 2-week return. We need this returned by the next meeting of council. Yeah. Okay. Clerk Klein, Deputy Clerk Carter, have you got something for us?
So I have that staff be directed to bring a report with possible resolution options to the March 24th, 2025 council meeting that reflect comments made at the March 10th, 2025 council meeting regarding, and then this topic.
Sounds right. Okay. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Blazek, Councillor Anstedt, you want to be our seconder here? Any further discussion or debate needed at this time? Anything further that is useful for staff in fulfilling this assignment? Councillor Anstedt.
Sorry, just through you, Mayor Kasenberg, I'm just curious, do we have any insight as to when the next subcommittee meeting is so that staff can get this information? If they need to converse with the committee?
We just had one today.
Okay.
I'm not sure when the next one will likely be in 2 months or another month, 6 weeks.
So
Okay.
we'll have to rely on staff
Okay.
inputs from our partners in the community, that in particular the hospital, which seems to be the one making the request, right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Rothwell, you're kind of vaguely waving your pen at me. I don't know if that's.
Thanks, Mayor Todd. So just for staff and perhaps for council, just clarification in terms of the discussion piece here is that the amount of up to $50,000 out of the 2025 $65,000 already allocated budget would be for this. And then if we are looking at 3 years, then the budget request would go to not just the 2026 budget, but also the 2027 budget. Is that correct? And that would be in addition to the 65? I just want to get that clarified.
So the staff can pick up this question. I think it's important that they do so in giving us enough information for us to consider what is next. I hope that's fine, that we're just sort of going to foist that on you and you can figure it out and tell us what we need to know. But you've heard some specific requests, I think, tonight to help us understand this. And certainly, if it hasn't been made explicit, I think we also need to understand their current budget for physician recruitment, which we've contributed some to, but they've done some fundraising. And I want to understand whether that can't be used in the context of this request. At least I want to know that. Okay, colleagues, we have a resolution on the table. It's been duly moved and seconded. It's been read into the record by the deputy clerk. I think we all understand what we're voting on, right? Deferral till next meeting, report with a number of aspects to it. Everyone comfortable with undertaking a vote on this? All right, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Callum, yeah.
Yes, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. And again, when you're having your discussion, CAO, just discuss about the subsidizing and the bridge gap. I know there were two different things. And just about funds, you know, in our meeting today, we allocate in our budget, but our neighboring municipalities, they have developed a significant amount of reserves for this. And it's just, they give annually, but they also come back to the municipality, and it's at the municipality's discretion where to forward the funds to. So, thank you.
Understood. As I've said in the public media, this is an arms race, and it's a very difficult one to win when you have communities like Kingston that put $1 million in their budget for this purpose. So, you know, we have to be mindful of the game that's being played here. All right, let's turn to item 9.4.3. CAO Snell still with us. Council is apprised of the pending discontinuation of the PC Connect intra-county route, a decision made by County Council in December, but reminded that there are partnerships in place for the inter-county routes that support moving those living in Perth County and parts of Perth County to neighboring areas, including Kitchener, Waterloo, and London. Those partnerships are not affected by the county's decision to kill PC Connect's rural route, and a continuation of them by agreement with the City of Stratford and Town of St. Mary's is recommended by staff in the report at least until the end of this year. The longer-term future of those inter-county routes, the ones that take people to London and Kitchener, does remain in some question, but that matter lies ahead and is not inherently on tonight's agenda. CAO Chris Snell has been involved from day one of these agreements with these other partners and is here to bring us up to date. CAO Snell.
Thank you, Mayor. So as the Mayor said, we know the county model is being discontinued effective March 31st. It's unfortunate, but the three partners have agreed to the extension of the Kitchener to Listowel, St. Mary's to Kitchener, and the London to Stratford routes, at least until the end of 2025. This will be ongoing beyond the provincial funding, which does end in March 31st. And we will have further conversations throughout the year on if we're able to extend this beyond the 2025 year end. It will depend on ridership, of course, which has consistently gone up in all three routes, but will also depend on future funding applications that we do have in with the province, as well as commitments from upper levels of government, as well as just the financial commitment of all three partners. So council is aware, our Kitchener to Listowel route has many months been the most successful of the three routes. So we're sending as many people to Kitchener as what St. Mary's and Stratford both are sending to Kitchener on the route often. Although it dipped a little bit in February, that was the first time we really actually seen any sort of decrease in ridership, but that was mostly because it was a short month and also we had a lot of bad weather. So we're hopefully the success of the route will continue. Certainly both City of Stratford and the Town of St. Mary's is taking their agreement tonight, but the City of Stratford has approved the extension last week at their council meeting. So I am certainly pleased that we're able to continue to offer at least this part of PC Connect. Just for council's information, West Perth and North Perth will be having discussions about the possibility of us having some partnership of figuring out a route that would serve both West Perth and North Perth to connect us to Stratford. West Perth has reached out to me and looking to set up a meeting. It's just very preliminary, but certainly they're interested in restoring some sort of connection with their community to Stratford, and I certainly said we would be interested in the conversation. So I'll certainly answer any questions, but the bylaw will be available later on in tonight's meeting to formally have the mayor and clerk sign the extension agreement with the city and the St. Mary's, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Colleagues, questions, first comments? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. Thanks for your report. So my understanding is that the County of Perth, in its decision to stop or continuing the other routes, was in part based on no additional provincial funding beyond that March 31st date. Is there any hope of the province coming to help augment the dollars required for this extended service to the end of 2025 so that we can go into 26, or do we need to make a special request to the province for that consideration?
So with the current program out right now, the City of Stratford is applying. The parameters don't exactly meet the grant applications, but the province has encouraged us to apply anyway, which that seems. I think they gave the county the same advice on their current ridership too. We're constantly, and I know the county had delegations again at Roma trying to pressure and lobby the provincial government into supporting rural public transportation. So if this council would like to add to that any way possible, that's beneficial, but we certainly have been trying to do that at any of the conventions or opportunities we get to talk to our MPPs about rural transportation.
It's, if I might, I'm going to weigh in too. It's a difficult challenge, right? Because on paper, at least, the province is not all that involved in funding transit in cities. And so for them to sort of look at the rural lens and say, oh, but we're going to make a change here, opens them to the precedent that they may set, wherein the cities are going to come with their hands out and say, pay up. And so there's sort of a little bit of a sort of philosophical, practical problem in there, a little bit of both, that I think we're dealing with in terms of the province. My take, frankly, as mayor, the PC Connect emerged very early on in my first days as mayor with the announcement from the province not long after I was sworn in. And at the time, it was pretty clear that the province was making a commitment that was going to be a 5-year commitment. And after that, it was up to us. And so, we've struggled with that because we don't want to stick this on the property tax base. And certainly, I think that's largely what was reflected at the county decision to discontinue the intra-county route. But like here we are, right? Transit systems in Ontario, generally speaking, are funded by the local municipality, by the cities, those governments, and they're heavily subsidized by property taxpayer dollars because fares don't cut it. They never will.
Just one other point, and thanks very much, Mayor Todd. I fully understand the comments. One thing in my mind that didn't change was the fact that rural Ontario and their needs didn't necessarily decrease for the need for transportation. So obviously the province saw the wisdom of at least giving a 5-year commitment. So perhaps they could see the wisdom of perhaps reconsidering what they've done. Nevertheless, we've always talked about the importance of private companies taking on the issue of transportation. We did have private companies that did do private transportation. And unfortunately, then that business model no longer worked. And the short answer, as I understand, is if you don't use it, you'll lose it. So that's what happened. And even the largest of them all, being Greyhound, which was operational for a long, long time, has withdrawn from that service. However, there have been, as I understand, elsewhere, including into Stratford, I believe, there's private companies that have taken on routes and have, to this point, been able to operate. I don't know their financials, but if, as CAO Snell is saying, there's great interest, at least in the listable KW route and perhaps others, perhaps a business case could be shown to a private company that there are people that would be willing to use the service at reasonable cost. And if they could be encouraged to step forward, then that would be a new business in our community that could serve. And one last thing that the property tax base would have to cover. So I'll just, those words, thank you.
Anyone else, colleagues, ready to consider the resolution? The resolution, remember, is an extension essentially to the agreement with St. Mary's and Stratford for the inter-county routes. Okay, as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth considers bylaw number 21-2025 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to sign the community transportation service agreement extension with the city of Stratford and town of St. Mary's until December 31st, 2025. Can I call for a mover on this? Councillor Nordum, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Discussion, debate. Not seeing any, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. All right, let's turn, thank you, CAO Snow. Let's turn to item 10. Does any member of council wish to request a report from staff or committee? Not seeing any indication of that. Perhaps this is a good time for a health break. I think my bladder would appreciate it at this point. So let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come back at 8:51. Are we back on? Can we bring the, we're good to go? All right, thank you. Let's see here. Let's turn to item 11. We have received 3 items of correspondence beyond that already shared for council's disposition. For item 11.1, we have received a request to designate a municipally significant event to support special permit acquisition from the AGCO related to a music concert scheduled for August 2nd, 2025 at the Steve Kerr Memorial Complex and associated with the Listowel 150 celebrations. The request includes requests for noise bylaw exemptions for the same music concert. The resolution is as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth designates Listowel 150th Country Music Concert being held on Saturday, August 2nd, 2025 at the Steve Kerr Memorial Complex as a municipally significant event for the purpose of obtaining a special occasion permit from the AGCO, and that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves an exemption to any timing regulations found in the noise bylaw for this event and notifies relevant parties accordingly. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Andreessen, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd and Council. I just want to recognize that the chair of the committee is here in our audience here this evening, John Verwey, and I'm sure this council wants to thank Mr. Verwey and all the various members of the committee and all the work that has clearly been underway for some time and is starting to show great things, everything from curling bonspiels through to other activities and so on. And we look forward to what this year has to bring. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Anyone else? All right, I think it's been duly moved and seconded, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. A second matter related to a parade associated with the 150th. As follows, that the Council of Municipality of North Perth approves a request from the Chamber of Commerce to close the following roads from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. on Saturday, August 2nd, 2025 for the Listowel 150th Anniversary Parade. Main Street East between Maitland and Wallace Avenue, Wallace Avenue North between Main Street and Elizabeth Street, Elizabeth Street East between Wallace Avenue and Royal Street, Royal Street to Derry Street East, and Derry Street East ending at Elm Avenue North, and that North Perth Fire, Public Works, OPP, and Perth County EMS be advised of the event. Can I call for a mover on this one? You want to ask a question before we move? Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Todd. I think this is very exciting, and I'm excited for the parade. It's right by my house, but I just want to remind staff of a concern that I've had with this parade route before, and just that we are not, there is no other access than Elm Avenue North to like Maitland Terrace and a lot of residences back in that area, and I just want to make sure that municipal staff in the parade route are not blocking off entire access points. It's just a comment.
Fair enough. I don't know who should comment on this. Clerk Klein, you got anything? You want to comment on this?
We can take that feedback into consideration and make sure there's access for those who need it.
Right. We show, I see a little bit of sort of a red stint going south from the far west, far east end, sorry, of this graph, and that certainly would be a bottleneck if that is completely closed off. So we may want to think about how we deal with that area. CAO Snell?
So this route does differ again from our new preferred parade route. And certainly, maybe if you'd like, the chair could ask this, but I know they did have conversations both with the OPP and um, manager of operations, Rob, about this parade route. But it does, this, and why we did get away from this parade route is some of the issues that council talked about. It's difficult to keep traffic through town, but maybe perhaps because it is the 150th, that's why staff and the OPP have made some provisions to provide one more parade using the old traditional route, but um, some of the things the council discussed is why we did change to the new parade route. But I can have this conversation with the OPP and Director of Operations.
I think Councillor Blazek raises a really good point, right? If those who are living north and somewhat east of this on Elm are blocked off from any access to Main Street, that would be a problem. And so, yeah, exactly. That would be quite a problem. So certainly if we can have that followed up on, I think in the context of this, that's important. All right. This is moved and seconded, I believe. Not moved and seconded. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. All right. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Blazek. All right. Thank you. Any discussion or debate further? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Mr. Verwey, nice to have you with us tonight. Thank you for coming. All right, let's turn to item 11.3. This is another parade route, different configuration again. We have received a parade route request from the North Perth Community of Character that proposes a closure of several listed streets for the fundraising Character Run, which is going to take place on May 29th, 2025. Here's the resolution that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the request from the North Perth Community of Character to close the following roads from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. on Thursday, May 29th, 2025, for the 14th annual fundraiser Character Run. Bidding Street West from the entrance of the Steve Kerr Memorial Complex to Road 165, and Road 165 from Perth Line 86 to Line 87. And that North Perth Fire, Public Works, OPP, and Perth County EMS be advised of the event. Can I call for a mover on that one? Councillor Anstead, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Rothwell. Any discussion or debate? Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I just want to make it known that there are, I believe, at least 2 residents on this road. And this is a working day. This is a Thursday from 4:30 to 7:30. Those 2 residents will have no access to get in or out of their properties because of this route. Because I think it goes, does it not go right to line 87? Yeah, it does. It does go right. If you're in the 10K route, it goes to line 87, which will require closing the entire road. So for them to even bring vehicles in and out of their driveways, they are going to be in the way of the run. I know this has been a concern in the past. I know in the past we've communicated to the residents, but in all honesty, it's a bit of a problem. And in terms of emergency services, the same problem as well. So I'm going to bring that up, but it is a concern.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Like you, I've heard from residents along there objecting to the use of that in the timelines that are commonly used. I'm not sure how to resolve that, short of suggesting an alternative route be produced, but that's not easy either in our community. So I'm not sure how we should proceed, but short of those folks being visited perhaps by representatives of the Character Run and discussed through the possibilities, and short of allowing the possibility of emergency vehicles to reach those homes should there be some kind of medical or other emergency, I'm not sure that we have an easy solution there. Anyone, staff, you got anything to say about this? Let's ask staff first, see what they have to say.
Just like the previous resolution from Parades and Listwell, the EMS and police are notified of the closures. So if there is an emergency, part of the organizer's responsibility is to make sure emergency vehicles can respond. So that will be worked out for both the parade and because effectively the parade shuts down the road for a length of time as well. So there's, in the case of tonight's parade request, would be not just two, there'd be hundreds of people shut off from their driveway for an extended period of time. So we do our best to certainly make public safety a priority, but there is no doubt there is an inconvenience for any special event that happens on our roadways during North Perth.
Thank you. Is there an obligation with these grants from council for the organizations represented to notify those who could be sort of locked in, so to speak?
Certainly, it's been really encouraged from the staff standpoint to discuss and notify people along the parade routes and road closures for special events. I believe last year the creative character did do it, but I can follow up with them again this year.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Councillor Andreessen.
Through you, Mayor Kiesenberg, in the past, I have suggested that this actual run be organized on our trails. I think we have excellent trails that could be used for this purpose. And obviously they haven't taken that as a suggestion, and because before us this evening, we have the same route again, but I think in the past, at one time it was done on our trails, but we're not seeing that at this time.
Noted. Anyone else with comments or questions? This is moved and seconded. I think we got this done this time, right? All right, let's have the vote.
I'm in favor.
Councillor Anstead records a manual in favor vote, and that is carried. I do, if I can, on behalf of council, given this issue, I think that we should encourage these organizations to notify those who are living in the area of these things and sort of make it clear that it's council's will that we try to remove the barriers that some of those who are living in those neighborhoods are experiencing or might experience. Knowledge is power. All right, thank you for that. Let's turn to consideration of bylaws that have been recommended to us for action. Tonight we have a few of them, and the enabling resolution outlines for each bylaw their number and purpose. Before I read that resolution for passing these bylaws, does any councillor wish to extract one or more of them for a more fulsome consideration or an individual recorded vote? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands wave at me, so let's consider the omnibus resolution here as follows. Following bylaws are hereby passed. 19-2025 being a bylaw to authorize the borrowing of money. 21-2025 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of an extension agreement with the City of Stratford and Town of St. Mary's. 23-2025 being a bylaw to authorize the repair and maintenance of the Holats Municipal Drain. 24-2025 being a bylaw to authorize the repair and maintenance of the Logren, I'll try, municipal drain. 25-2025 being a bylaw to authorize the repair and maintenance of the Perry municipal drain. 26-2025 being a bylaw to authorize the repair and maintenance of the Shearer municipal drain. 27-2025 being a bylaw to authorize the repair and maintenance of the Walter municipal drain. And 28-2025 being a bylaw to authorize repair and maintenance of the Broughton municipal drain. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Johnston, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Blazek, thank you. Any discussion or debate on all these, which mostly are drains? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Let's move to item 13 on our agenda. Does any councillor wish leave to give notice of motion tonight? Not seeing anything there. Let's turn to item 14 on our agenda. Are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? Anyone like to raise anything? I took note of some communication that a children's choir from our community is going to perform at Carnegie Hall this coming Saturday in New York City. And apparently under the baton of a Listowel raised individual who's a composer and conductor. And as someone who has a little bit of appreciation for choral music history of Listowel and has had a small part perhaps in it, I wish our children and their choir and their performance to be outstanding. What an experience they will have visiting Carnegie Hall and having the opportunity to sing in that very august concert environment. So we wish you the best. We are genuinely excited for the representation of this community at that location. Anyone else? All right. We're at agenda item number 15. We have one item to be considered in a closed session of council. Let me grab the resolution for that to enable. As follows, this council proceeds in camera at 9:08 p.m. to address a matter pertaining to the following. Advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose regarding taxi bylaw number 166-2014. Can I call for a mover on this? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Rothwell. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. All right, we're going to reset things in the chamber to allow for a closed session meeting of council. Any who do not need to be here or have not been invited to this portion of our meeting should exit. We will close the doors, we will change our audio visual settings, and we will return to our public session after our discussion. You'll let me know when it's time to go. We're back? Okay. All right. I can report to the public that council did discuss the matter identified in our enabling resolution for a closed session meeting of council. Council gave staff direction, which will come to light in the near future in an open session meeting of council. Council, as a mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. We have two of our rank who are leaving for this item. That should be noted in the minutes. I have the enabling resolution for this bylaw as follows. The bylaw 22-2025 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth is hereby passed. Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Nordham. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. We'll bring our colleagues back into the chamber for the final resolution of the evening. All right, colleagues, we did it all. We took in everything that they asked us to do, and we did it tonight. And so it's appropriate for us to consider adjournment. Let's consider the resolution as follows. The meeting adjourns at 9:23 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, March 24th, 2025 at 7 p.m. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Richardson and Councillor Rothwell. It's the R's tonight. It's not debatable, so let's have that vote. The pirate sounds are happening in the chamber. That's not good. And that is carried. Colleagues, we meet again on Monday, March 24th, 2025. Until that meeting,